Elements are a very important aspect of my singing monsters, and in the game we have a huge variety of elements. These elements give life to all the monsters in the game, but I'm sure you've already looked at the game's elements and imagined what it would be like if a new element were added. In today's video, we're gonna look at the elements I think should be added to my singing monsters. Elements that would definitely inspire amazing monsters that I'd love to see on new islands or even on islands we already know in the game. The first element I think should exist in my singing monsters is one that we already have a few monsters with aspects of this potential element. The dragon element. Yes folks, in my opinion there should be a dragon element in my singing monsters. I'm a big fan of dragons. And a game that my singing monsters was definitely somewhat inspired by is Dragon City, a game many of you may know. Seeing the dragons in that game makes me really want to see an island in my singing monsters where the monsters have this theme, look and characteristics. It would be incredible to see several dragons spread across an island, some vocalists, others playing instruments. With BBB's creativity, I'm sure they'd create something amazing. As I've mentioned, we already have some monsters in the game that have details reminiscent of dragons, but they aren't necessarily dragons. Some are, but others just have a few dragon-like details. So, an island full of these dragon monsters would be amazing. I hope this becomes a reality in the future. Now the next element I'd love to see in my singing monsters is one I'm sure will someday make it into the game, the time element. That's right folks, the time element is definitely one of the elements I'd most like to see in my singing monsters. Seeing some fan-made creations by the community excites me even more because a time-themed island would be wonderful. Imagine seeing monsters with this element, each with unique characteristics and styles, some inspired by the past, others by the future, and maybe even some with designs inspired by time itself, like clocks and such. The sound of this island would undoubtedly be magnificent, as would the entire class of monsters, so this element is one I truly hope gets added to my singing monsters someday. Moving on to an element that might seem like a joke at first glance, but would actually be a great idea, the alien element. That's right folks, the alien element would, in my opinion, be one of the coolest elements in my singing monsters. The game already has some monsters that resemble or are inspired by aliens, but still have the normal elements of the game. However, having an island with several of these monsters and this element would be incredible. I think the alien element would pair beautifully with the elements we already have in the game. Imagine a water alien or a fire alien. It would be simply fantastic. Moreover, this element could come with its own island, maybe set in space or on another planet. That would be incredible. We know that Anglo is a monster that came from another planet to the world of monsters, so who knows, maybe this planet has an island full of aliens. I think this idea is perfect, and BBB really needs to create an island like this. I'm sure most of you would also love to see an island focused on the lore of another planet with a new class. That would be magnificent. Now on to another element I'd love to see in the game, which might be an interesting idea, the ghost element. That's right, the ghost element should be added to my singing monsters. Well, the game doesn't have many monsters that bring this theme to the islands. I'm not saying there aren't any, but there are very few. So a ghost island or a new ghost class would be incredible in my opinion, as it would feature spooky or attempt to be spooky monsters. Ghosts combined with the existing elements in my singing monsters would be a very cool idea. Maybe it's not as strong an idea as the others, but I'd still love to see these monsters in the game. Now moving on to an element that exists but not within my singing monsters, but in the Lost Landscapes, the candy element. Yes, folks, the candy element is a very creative concept created by Raw Zebra in the Lost Landscapes. And of course, along with this element, there's a wonderful island, which I absolutely adore. So I think BBB should draw inspiration from this and create an island with a similar theme. I think we've all imagined what a candy island in my singing monsters would look like. Even before the Lost Landscapes, I saw many people creating fan-made concepts of such an island. In my opinion, it would be amazing to see an element like this in the game. In addition to a beautiful island, the monsters would have wonderful and charismatic designs that everyone would surely surely love, just as they love the Candy Island from the Lost Landscapes. I don't know if the island in my Singing Monsters would be better than the one Raw created, but I'm sure it would be very interesting. Perhaps BBB could even partner with Raw Zebra, as they kind of did in a special video on the My Singing Monsters channel. Seeing how talented Raw and the Lost Landscapes team are, BBB should consider hiring them or bringing something from the Lost Landscapes to My Singing Monsters. Alright, now let's talk about an element that many might find boring, but to me it would be really cool to see in the game: the sand element or desert element. Well, the name of the element says it all. It would be a sand element inspired by desert themes, which I find incredible, especially when looking at fan-made concepts created by the game's community. Yes, we do have an island with sand in My Singing Monsters, which is the Earth Island
But
skin.
even so,
I would love to see a desert island with monsters featuring this element. I think the sound would be the highlight of this island, not so much the design of the monsters, but whenever I see an island with this theme, the music always grabs my attention. I think the instruments would be the part I'd most enjoy seeing. So, to me, a desert-themed island or element would be very interesting. Now, moving on to an element based on something that already exists in My Singing Monsters. Though it might not be easy to implement, it would undoubtedly be amazing. The Colossal element. That's right, in My Singing Monsters, we know the Colossals, who are most of the time the homes of monsters. As we know from the game's lore, they were the creators of the My Singing Monsters universe. So imagining an island dedicated to these creatures is something we've all thought about at some point. It would undoubtedly be grand, magnificent, and majestic, as the Colossals are the creators of the monster world. Their island and element would be something awe-inspiring, something that would leave everyone in amazement. Of course, it might be difficult to make this happen in My Singing Monsters, but difficult doesn't mean impossible. Who knows, maybe one day this element will become real. One of the most popular elements in My Singing Monsters fan-made creations is undoubtedly the dark element, more specifically the Dark Island created by Logan Peters. Yes, in my opinion, this element would be an amazing addition to My Singing Monsters. It would be an element entirely opposite to the light element. While we do have the shadow element in My Singing Monsters, it is an ethereal element, meaning it's restricted to ethereal islands and cannot currently be combined with other non-ethereal elements. This dark element, however, could be paired with other elements in the game, creating a wonderful island with an incredible theme, much like the Dark Island, which I'm sure you're familiar with. In my opinion, this island and element should exist in the game. I'm truly a fan of this idea and would love to see and hear the dark monsters. Finally, the last element I think would be very interesting and would make me incredibly happy to see is the fossil element or dinosaur element. Yes, folks, I know I mentioned the dragon element earlier, but now we're talking about a different type of creature, dinosaurs. While My Singing Monsters already has some monsters with details and references to dinosaurs, an island full of dinosaur-style monsters would be magnificent to me. As a big dinosaur fan, I'd love to see an island focused on this theme. The element could be called either the dinosaur element or the fossil element, which would make a lot of sense. However, since the game already has the bone element, I'm not sure if it would be named fossil, but the idea of adding more dinosaur-like monsters remains the same. Well folks, these were the elements I'd like to see in My Singing Monsters. I'd love for you to comment on more elements that should exist in My Singing Monsters. If there are enough suggestions, I might even make a part 2. Also, let me know which ones you agree or disagree with from this list. I hope you enjoyed the video and see you next time.